Hey class, my name is Noah Potter and I'm here to give my persuasive speech. I think that after my speech, the audience, you guys, will be more aware of the negative effects that social media can have. Social media is so popular and still so new that the negative effects, although they're very real and apparent, have not even been fully unveiled yet. Every day, 3.5 billion social media users are active on social media. That's an equivalent of 45% of the population, and that spreads throughout all races, genders, and age groups. Social media is still popular, still very new, that we aren't even sure of all the negative effects that it's having on our generations, both younger and older. Just a preview of my main points: social media has negative effects for the majority of all of its users. There needs to be action in order to protect younger children and teenagers specifically from these negative effects. A resolution might be something that would not allow young people to become addicted to social media. And I would also argue that responsible use of social media is completely acceptable. We just need to find that middle. And I think the action of what we need to do would be to start keeping ourselves accountable and responsible, and that also includes recognizing our need to distance ourselves from social media. So back to my main point: social media has negative effects for the majority of its users. The recent studies done on social media have shown how addictive these sites are. Like I was saying before, it's not just addictive for younger generations specifically, those are affected more, but even we can see in the older generations that are involved in more things like Facebook, it is addictive and it is a huge time waster. Another big problem that affects not just younger people or older people, but everyone involved in social media is the lack of data privacy. And this has created numerous real-world problems, from stolen identities and serious things like bank accounts being taken advantage of, to even just things like catfishing, and it's promoting a lot of dishonesty. And although these points that I've just shared are worrisome on their own, the effects on younger minds is often worse. There needs to be action in order to protect younger children from these negative effects. I think things like setting limits or account monitoring could help younger generations, because what we're seeing is that the addiction is something that there's always going to be the temptation to, whether that's from things like drugs, or what we're seeing more here is like an addiction to social acceptance or being part of some kind of popular group. People are finding their worth not in themselves or great attributes of themselves, but in how many likes they might get on something. These social ramifications can be felt by teens themselves. There's a huge influx of teens recognizing how empty they might feel when all that's mattering to them is how well their social media is doing. The use of small limitations on teenagers or children's social media can prove to be extremely helpful. A problem solver that would prevent children from becoming addicted could very well be the answer to this problem. And although it's hard to admit, there are some positive sides to social media. Some positive sides that we see from older generations and maybe older teenagers is the ability to connect with friends that you maybe have lost contact with, or family members that have moved out of state. One thing that can be seen as both a positive and a detriment to social media is the availability for news to travel faster. We can see that really positive in things like natural disasters or dangerous situations, but it becomes negative when we have biased news sources putting out untrue articles or catchy headlines and gaining all this attention on social media. And these positive effects can maximize the good outcomes from social media while also keeping people safe. So I do think there is a place for social media. I just don't think it's how it's being used right now. I'm also here to argue that responsible use of social media would be a good thing. Social media's positive effects don't outweigh their bad ones, though. the availability to keep in touch with family members or lost friends, I don't think outweighs the way that social media is pitting people against each other with their forwarding of extremist ideas, both far left and far right on the political spectrum. I also think when we're talking about the responsible use of social media, it's important to recognize that those usually aren't the main reasons why people are staying on social media. People might come to social media for those things and hopes to connect with lost friends or to catch up with family, but things like Instagram and Facebook, these apps are designed to seduce you into staying on and spending your free time on those apps, and that's 9 times out of 10 the reasons are people are staying on those sites. I think that the first step to fixing this addiction to social media should start with our generation. I think we should be able to do that through self-regulation. I'm not here to say that I think the government needs to step in or the state needs to step in or anything like that. I think our generation is, largely seen as kind of the proprietors of these social media sites, and that if we are able to take a step back like we're seeing a lot of young people do and self-regulate and keep our own time accountable and how we're sending it, I think that'd be a huge encouragement to people who are able to see the problems with social media and the negative effects of all their time being spent on that. And this reflection of our leaning on social media should encourage us to disengage with our need of self-satisfying addictions. You're so much more worth any likes that you might get or any retweets or whatever other people are on social media for. A quick conclusion, a run through of my main points. Social media is popular and new. These negative side effects, although they have been felt and seen, are not even fully unveiled yet, but they are very prevalent. That was my thesis statement. My main points: social media has negative effects for the majority of all of its users. There needs to be action in order to protect younger children or teenagers from these negative effects. A situation that would not allow young people to become addicted would definitely help this cause. Responsible use of social media would not only be acceptable, but would be a good thing. We can use the good parts of social media as an advantage for us. And I think all this begins, the self-regulation, the self-admittance of maybe an addiction or reliance of social media. I think that needs to start with ourselves, and that if we started to distance ourselves, it would have a ripple effect. I think that this persuasive speech should be easy to remember, because whether we're the ones on social media or our younger siblings or our aunts, uncles, mothers, we know someone on social media most likely, so it affects all of us. And if it doesn't directly affect us through people who have it, the younger generations coming up are definitely being affected by it, and I think they're going to feel the brunt, the real negative side effects more than we ever will. So I hope this has persuaded you guys into taking a step back and looking at the way you use social media, and frankly I hope it's something that we can see that we need to change. Thanks.